It's time for smart money moves, protecting your legacy, your property, and your parents. These are things that are really important to all of us. We'll discuss wills, estate planning, and more. That's coming up right now on Smart Money Moves. Welcome, I'm Marcia Griffin, and we are so happy to have you with us today on Smart Money Moves, Building Wealth for Everyday People. What do you, your parents, your adult children, your whole family, what do you need to know about protecting the money, your house, and other assets that will be transferred to you upon death? I know we don't want to hear these things, but so many of us lose what was left to us because there was just simply no plan. Joining us today are two experts who can give us some really great information about your plan and what to do next. Aimee Griffin is the managing attorney of the Griffin firm, and Calvin Williams Jr. is the CEO and founder of Freeman Capital. I'd love to welcome both of you to Smart Money Moves.
Thank you for having us.
Let me just start, and thank you so much, Aimee, and thank you, Calvin. First of all, we are talking about a subject that very few people want to hear about: wills, death, on and on and on. But it's so critical for us to be aware, to understand what to do when someone dies, and also how to protect ourselves. So we're really dealing with intergenerational wealth here. I'm going to start with you, Aimee, and talk to us just for a minute about why protecting one's property is so critical. What happens when we don't deal with these things ahead of time?
I spend so much time trying to tell people it's really important, even though it's not the funnest conversation we have. But if we think about the goal is to transfer and build wealth from generation to generation. We do so much work so that our kids can have the benefit of our assets. And if we think about it, if we don't plan for something as simple as a house, if we want our house that we built for, which is a huge part of our wealth, and we pass it on to our two children, what's going to happen with our two children if it goes through probate? First and foremost, the thing that's going to happen is if there's any debt, it will first come from making sure that it is sold, the house is sold, so then the debts are paid for. Secondarily, if you have more than one child and you only have one house to pass on, the chances are good that the house will be sold for the benefit of each one getting an equal amount. So, and we know that real estate appreciates and money evaporates. So if we're trying to build a legacy for our loved ones, we need to be thinking about how do we best make it move on from generation to generation.
And everyone wants to do better. Everybody wants to be wealthy. Everybody wants to have a little bit of money. The reality is many of us are behind the eight ball, if you will, but we're trying to get there. Talk to us for a minute about what you do, what you suggest for just average everyday people. How would we go about building wealth, and what should we do first?
So that's a really powerful question. And it's something that we deal with a lot at Freeman Capital, where we focus on helping people understand what are the first and next steps that they can take. Most of our communities are in a place where they've been working, but they aren't optimizing their cash and their investments to best put them in a position to build wealth for a lot of reasons. Some of it is emotional, some of it is a lack of access, someone who isn't there for us. And so the first thing that we focus on is how to help folks feel comfortable about where they are, to forgive themselves for any mistakes that their family might have made or they might have made, and then help them build a plan to move forward. And once that is done, then they can really begin to accelerate their steps for not just their current family, but for future generations as well.
Absolutely. So let me go back to Aimee for a minute. Aimee, first of all, talk to us about why so many people are really afraid of getting a will. I think without question, look, I have a family member right now whose parents were well educated. They did not have a will. The parents died. The house has been sitting there for 3 years. Nothing has happened. Number one, Aimee, why? I mean, what's the deal? Why are people so afraid? And what should they do? How does one even get a will?
Well, there are many ways to go through get a will, but the right way is to get with an attorney who focuses on estate planning, because it's a conversation of how do we really want to transfer those assets, not just I just need a will. Legal Zoom will make it happen, but talk to someone who can give you real advice, because a lot of times what I tell people, the greatest goals is to avoid probate, because I'm sure when you're talking about the house that stands vacant, it's because that nobody has the legal authority to do anything. When someone passes away, anything that's solely in your name, it is frozen. That asset is frozen until the court gives you permission to act on their behalf, if there isn't a plan in place. And I think that so often people are fearful, because when we say, do you think I'm going to die? But in our community, that's what you hear. And we also think, I don't have enough to plan for. We think that we just don't have enough to justify having a plan.
So Calvin, when people come to you, this is before death, this is before the estate plan, they're coming to you because they want to have more money, they want to be about more, they want to be able to save more. What are the first 3 things that you would recommend to the average person? Let's say a person that makes $50,000, $60,000, $70,000. They have kids, they don't have a house, but they just want to do better. What would you suggest?
So the first thing that I would suggest is for them to understand that times have changed, and that the wealth management industry and a lot of finance has been set up to only serve those who are already wealthy and have a lot of assets. But there's a new crop of agencies and individuals who are set up to serve people just like you and me, and just like those who you talked about. And so you can now form a team of professionals, just like you would if you had a healthcare problem. You can see your primary care and you can see a specialist. You now can do that same thing for your finances. You can talk to financial planners, to estate planners who can help you get things going. So the first step is to realize that there are people there who have built a business just to help people like yourself. Then once you've understood that there is a community that is now built for you, it's now begin to get into some action steps. And for many, it begins with figuring out what is the emergency fund that I need. And this is something that is tossed around a lot, but it's actually really important for a number of reasons. The most being that it can just give you security. We believe that money is that the use of money is a outward the display of how you feel emotionally. And so when you are confident about yourself and your money, you can now make more moves. And having something like an emergency fund will help you do that. And then thirdly, we want to put folk on a plan to build wealth long term. Understand that it doesn't matter how small you are starting with, but that if you think about your children and your children's children, let's set them up for success. And starting today with a plan can help you do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, look, we all want to build wealth. We all want to do well. Aimee, let me just jump back over to you. Should everyone have an estate plan? Or is this just for homeowners? Is it just for people with money? What do you think?
Everybody after they've hit the age of 18 should have a plan. And because an estate plan, because we're an adult at 18, right? Okay. We have legal responsibility and may not have a whole lot of money, but it's like what I realized and how I realized it is when my daughter went to college and I couldn't answer questions on her behalf, or get information on her behalf. But even though, so we know that we're not just asking about what happens when you die with an estate plan. It's also what happens if you're unable to, if you need some support regarding your health or your financial situation. So that's why you need an estate plan at the age of 18, right? So that durable power of attorney, the healthcare proxy, all of those things, they don't wait for you to say, okay, I'm too old or that I'm too sick. But it's when you're an adult is when you want to create that emergency plan in place.
And so, look, when a person comes to you, and I'm really surprised about the 18, but that's really very interesting. Talk to us for a minute about in the whole estate planning environment, who should get a trust? Should everyone, even if you don't have property?
That's really a big question that so many people don't know the answer to, understanding what is a will and what's a trust. And remember it this way. The will directs the court on how your assets should be distributed. So that means it's a legal matter. You have to go to the court. The judge is involved, and that's how you think about a will, right? Yeah. People think about, you have on TV where someone goes into the lawyer's office for a reading of the will. That's just TV. That doesn't really have any power. But a trust is what we use as a rule book to talk about legacy building, planning for distribution of your assets, and rules on assets. How can that be managed? I suggest people to have a trust when you're trying to build legacy or you're trying to do asset protection, right? And so the first one, we think about legacy, when you're planning for your children's children, how you want those assets to be distributed, how you want those things to go forth without the use of the courts, because a trust is private and it is a relationship that your stuff gets to avoid probate completely. There's no court involved. There's no judge involved. That you get to organize how the assets that you have in your lifetime go to your loved ones immediately or over generations. So I have people get, life insurance for and have that trust as the beneficiary, so it can go for your grandchildren. Even give life insurance for your grandchildren in your trust. But we can plan for it to go, say that, give it out over time, because we know a lot of times people are not able to receive and responsibly manage those assets.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Look, this is a great conversation. Calvin, let's talk to you for a minute again. And my question is, as you're speaking to people, let's say before they even get to a will or a trust, and they just really want to, number one, buy stocks. They want to invest. They don't know whether they should invest or deal with real estate, and they're thinking, of course, about how that can be transferred to their children, etc. How do you determine, Calvin, whether, or how do you recommend if a person should take what little money that they have and invest in stocks versus real estate? Just what's that process for making a suggestion to your clients?
Yeah, I think that's a really powerful question, and it goes to the root of what is really important, is that we need to normalize that there are multiple ways to win and live a prosperous life. I think that we are now we are now living in a time to where you have people who have very different perspectives. Some who are okay with investing in the stock market, some who are just betting on real estate, some who are building a business and they're investing in that. And the power of really good financial planning is that we need to plan for that specific person's not just financial needs, but also what they care the most about. And so when someone is just getting started and they're trying to figure out where they need to go and how to first put their money, what we believe at Freeman Capital is that it's most important to, one, get someone in the habit of building wealth. This is a new behavior. And whenever you start something new, you always want to start small, be a little bit more conservative, and so that you can build up the confidence and experience to go. We might see a lot of people doing a lot of great things, and that's great. But we need to normalize the fact that each person has their own preferences, and in financial planning, leaning into those preferences and getting them in the habit of investing and building wealth in the way that best works for their specific situation and needs.
But let me just ask you honestly, tell us a story about either yourself or one of your clients, something that we can sort of relate to in terms of what you or a client did wrong and how you went about correcting that for yourself or for them.
Yeah, so I'm gonna talk about myself first because I don't want to.
Okay,
Because if anyone is gonna look bad, I'm gonna tell my own personal story here. But when I was first coming out of college, I was fortunate enough to make what I thought was good money, but I wasn't managing it well. And I can remember that, you know, I had fallen behind in my bills and I had gotten those pink envelopes. And for those who know, a pink envelope is when like you're behind and like they're telling you that, you know, you got to pay now or else, you know, you're going to lose something. And I couldn't do that. And so I can remember one time like the power man was coming to the house and I was begging him not to do that. And that experience was pivotal for me because it really let me know that, yes, making more money is important, but also managing and optimizing what you have is the most important part. Because I learned from that even though I had all of this coming in, I very much had a consumer mentality, and I was trying to look good and enjoy the money that I made, but I was thinking short term, just for the moment. And so coming out of that experience, it really framed up my own understanding and our philosophy at Freeman Capital. It's just to know that we are all doing our very best, but sometimes we don't know. And sometimes we don't have folks to lean on that can help us. And so that's why we push the community to find planners that can be relatable, that know how it feels to be in your situation and have not only gotten out of it themselves, but helped other people do it as well. And if we as a community can take a more humane perspective on how we can help folk build wealth, then more people will feel comfortable and not feel like they have to have it all together before they start to build wealth. We want to help folks start where you are because all of us have been and we've all made mistakes. And the most important thing is just to get back up and that you still have time to try again.
Let me get back to you, Aimee, for a minute. So look, just yesterday, a friend mentioned he was just so upset because he's an only child. His mother did have a will. The house was willed. The nursing home, she passed. Well, the nursing home came after him and that estate and just completely dismantled his whole life because he had no idea that the nursing home could go after him for payment, even though the house had been transferred. And this was not told by a lawyer. Talk to us about this. Is this truly a case? Does this happen often? And is this something that you've seen that's similar to this?
This happens all of the time. And
really?
you'll hear about the state taking your house. And so as soon as someone who has received Medicaid passes away, the federal government requires the state to go after recovery, seek Medicaid recovery, and to put a lien on the asset. And so what we work to do is, one, Medicaid planning. Ideally, we don't wait until there's a crisis. We do anticipatory work. And so that we can avoid the first part of Medicaid planning is that they say, okay, spend down all of your assets so then you can go in. We try to avoid that piece by positioning your assets in such a way so that they don't need to be all distributed or spent out. And then two, protecting the house in an irrevocable trust such that there isn't recovery. So, but again, that's all about that estate planning that people try to avoid. But if we are able to have that conversation, we can have it boldly, and then you can feel empowered about your ability to protect your assets and leave a legacy.
So look, I just want to ask a real down-to-earth question, guys. Aimee and Calvin, when we work with lawyers or work with financial advisors, wealth builders, etc., how can we tell if this is a person that is knowledgeable, this is a person that we can trust. I mean, what would you guys suggest? I mean, this is your business. You've got a lot of clients. I know you guys, well, you come very highly recommended. What would you suggest? Aimee,
I would start
I'll start
with me, right? So when you hear lawyer, you think that, okay, they all went to law school, so they all know the same answer. They all know the same thing. But
yeah.
I always say, like our firm, the Griffin firm, we are narrowly focused. We focus on estate planning and business succession planning. We focus on creating, protecting, and transferring wealth. That's it. If you see, and there are a number of us in the firm, but that's all that we do. But if you see one person who says, oh, I specialize in estate planning, divorce, DUI, criminal, 27 different things. Now, then you know that they really don't specialize. Like a doctor, you go to a podiatrist for your feet, cardiologist for your heart. Make sure that you go to a lawyer who really does this for a living and that they get to know, because we get to stay current on the laws because the laws change. So I encourage people to make sure that they talk to someone who knows what they're talking about and spend their time doing this.
Absolutely. And you've got to really sort of feel the pulse of the people and feel very comfortable. Calvin, in your work, your financial work, and you work with a lot of people. How does one discern whether they should go with a financial advisor or a wealth advisor?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And one, the wealth management industry, even in the title, is focused for how to help people who already have wealth to manage that. And that basically means that regular people who don't have hundreds of thousands in assets can't qualify for that type of a service. But that's why we focus on wealth building and servicing the regular person, those who are trying to grow and build. But there are still key questions that you want to ask anyone when it comes to a financial advisor or a planner. And the first one is, how do you get paid? It's very important to understand how your advisor is going to be paid, because they're going to be incentivized to act in the way that best serves them. And so there's a concept of being a fiduciary, which basically means that a advisor is going to put your interest as a client above their own. And so if you find out how someone is being paid, if you know that they're going to put your clients first, that is important. And also, the last 2 points that I'll say is that you want to understand, how does that firm measure your advisor's performance? There are some firms that measure it based off of how much assets can you gather or how many products can you sell. We like to focus on how much net worth can you build for your clients, because that's the most important thing for us. And a really important thing is that when you're getting into a relationship, it's always fun and easy, but you want to find out how to get out. And so you want to ask, what happens, how, and how do I change firms in the future? Yes, I'm coming to you now, but what is the process if I want to change later? Because then you can understand how this person works, how they're incentivized, what are they going to position you to kind of do and grow, and how to leave them if you need to. And then by knowing that information, you'll be in a better position to make a decision.
Absolutely. Well, look, this is great. Our time is running out. There are so many questions still to be answered and asked, and we're probably going to have you guys come back on again. But I do want to ask, and I'll start with you, Calvin, and then go to you, Aimee. Calvin, what smart money moves would you recommend to our viewers that they should remember and they should sort of take home from the experiences that you have had?
I would say that the number one move that we would recommend is to take time and start with your vision in mind of where you want to be it if you want to plan for generationally or just for next week, and then begin to work backwards and figure out, what is one small step that I can take today? Can I decrease one bill? Can I increase my savings? Can I increase my contribution to a plan? But figure out what is one thing you can do today as you're watching this that can help you get closer to your goals. And if you can take that first step, you can take a second and a third, and you'll be on your way to building wealth.
Absolutely. Well, progress begins with little baby steps, and I would highly recommend as you're looking at smart money moves, get your journal, write down some of the advice, and keep things going. Keep it front of mind. Aimee, what are some smart money moves that you want our audience to remember?
First and foremost, remember that it's not about you that you're necessarily doing the estate plan, because that's sometimes the block, because we don't want to have that conversation. But think about the people that you love, and that may compel you to act. Right. So we're not frozen, but we make a step. And also know that your estate plan is a dynamic thing. Right. What I think about at 60 isn't the same thing I'll think about as 40 nor 90. So that's something that you should revisit regularly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, look, we need estate planning. We need wills. We need financial advice. We need action. We want to move forward. I'd love to thank both of you for such a robust discussion, and especially to our audience for joining us today. For more information on this program and any other program produced by WHUT, go to WHUT.org. See you next time on Smart Money Moves. And remember, together we can and will make a difference in our community. Thank you.
This program was produced by WHUT and made possible by contributions from viewers like you. For more information on this program or any other program, please visit our website at WHUT.org. Thank you.